The morning was quiet, and the air was crisp at the Earth Military Academy. Soldiers and cadets trained hard, preparing for any possible threat. The training grounds were busy with activity as they ran drills, practiced combat, and sharpened their skills. Colonel Carter, a seasoned officer, paced near the command center, watching his cadets with pride. They were some of the best soldiers Earth had to offer, ready for anything. Or so they thought. Out of nowhere, the ground trembled slightly. It was as if something massive was descending from the sky. The cadets paused, looking around in confusion. Carter's sharp eyes quickly scanned the sky, his instincts kicking in. A dark shadow passed over the academy, blocking out the sunlight for a moment. A feeling of unease filled the air. Then a low hum echoed across the training fields. Carter's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary aircraft. The shape of the ship was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It was sleek, metallic, and far larger than any human-made vessel. The ship slowly descended, making no sound except for the strange hum that vibrated through the air. The cadets stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Their training had prepared them for war, for threats from Earth's enemies, but nothing like this. As the ship touched down on the training grounds, a cloud of dust rose up, making it even harder to see. The soldiers stood at attention, watching as the dust settled, revealing a massive structure that seemed both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship's exterior gleamed under the sun, its surface covered in strange symbols none of them recognized. This wasn't just a threat. It was something new, something they had never prepared for. Then, the doors of the ship opened with a loud hiss. A figure stepped out. The alien commander was tall, his body clad in armor that reflected the sunlight. His face was sharp, his eyes cold, and his presence was imposing. He moved with purpose, his bodyguards following him closely. The cadets could feel the tension in the air as they watched the alien's every move. Carter, although used to dangerous situations, felt a chill down his spine. This was not just an ordinary encounter. The alien's presence seemed to suck the air out of the ground. His bodyguards scanned the surroundings with cold, calculating eyes, looking at every cadet as if they were prey. They didn't belong here. Earth was not their territory. Yet here they were, and their power was terrifying. The alien commander raised his hand, and his voice echoed in a language the humans could not understand. But the tone was unmistakable. It was a command. It was as if he expected everyone to bow down or cower in fear. He didn't expect the humans to stand tall, to hold their ground. But they did. Carter stepped forward, his hand resting on the side of his weapon, but not pulling it out. He would wait. He would not make the first move. His cadets followed his lead, standing firm, their gazes locked on the alien. The commander's eyes scanned the crowd. He looked at them with a mix of curiosity and contempt. His gaze seemed to linger on Carter, as if sizing him up, as if trying to gauge the threat level. But then something unexpected happened. The alien blinked. It was subtle, but Carter caught it. The commander took a step back, his eyes narrowing. He didn't seem quite as confident as he had before. It was as if the alien had realized something that made him pause, something he hadn't expected when he came to Earth. The humans, despite being smaller, despite being weaker, were not afraid. They stood there, their eyes full of determination, their posture firm. The alien commander had made a huge mistake by underestimating humanity. He had expected the humans to break under pressure. He had expected them to bow down in fear. But that wasn't going to happen. For the first time, the alien looked uncertain. He had come here expecting a weak planet, a planet filled with fearful people who would fall under his command. But instead, he had encountered something far stronger than he had imagined. Carter's calm demeanor never wavered. He had been trained for moments like this. The rest of the cadets looked to him, waiting for his signal. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. His eyes were locked on the alien commander, making it clear that Earth would never surrender, no matter what. The tension was thick. Everyone waited. The aliens expected the humans to bow down. But what they didn't know was that Earth had its own rules, and Earth never bowed down to anyone. The alien commander's eyes swept over the group of cadets, their unwavering gazes locked on him. His posture shifted slightly, the discomfort evident in the way his armored feet shifted in the dusty ground. He was used to commanding entire fleets, to being feared by those who looked at him. But here, on Earth, in front of these humans, something was off. The cadets stood like statues, their eyes unblinking. Carter's hand rested by his side, but his fingers twitched slightly, ready to spring into action at the first sign of trouble. He wasn't afraid. He had dealt with countless enemies before, but this was different. The commander was not only a military threat, he was a symbol of something much larger. The silence between them was deafening. The aliens didn't speak. The humans didn't move. The air itself seemed heavy, charged with tension, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. After what felt like an eternity, the commander finally spoke, his voice deep and rich with authority. Though the language was alien, the tone was unmistakable. It was a demand, not a request. It was as if he were giving a command to a group of lower creatures. His words echoed through the air, but Carter did not flinch. He simply stared back, his expression unreadable. "Who is in charge here?" the commander asked, his voice carrying power and coldness. Carter didn't need to look around. He stepped forward, placing himself between the commander and the cadets. His gaze never wavered. "I am," he said firmly, his voice steady. The alien commander's gaze flickered for a moment, as if taken aback. He had expected the humans to cower, to submit. But Carter stood firm. His presence was strong, confident, and it unnerved the alien. The alien commander took a step closer, his heavy boots thudding against the ground. The bodyguards behind him shifted, their eyes scanning the cadets, calculating the situation. They seemed to be waiting for a signal, for something to happen. The alien raised a hand, signaling his guards to stop. His gaze locked with Carter's, a silent challenge between them. "You do not know who you are dealing with," the commander said, his voice low and dangerous. Carter didn't back down. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," he said. "And I don't care. Earth doesn't bow to anyone." For a brief moment, the tension in the air thickened. The commander's eyes narrowed, studying Carter, weighing his words. He had come here expecting a simple show of power, expecting the humans to cower before him. But now, something was different. These humans were not like the others he had conquered. Behind him, his soldiers were restless. The air was heavy with the potential for violence, and Carter knew that one wrong move could set off a battle that Earth was not prepared for. But he wasn't afraid. He knew that humanity's strength came not from their weapons, but from their will. Carter took another step forward, his eyes unwavering. "You made a mistake by coming here," he said calmly, "and you'll soon realize that you're not the one in control." The alien commander tilted his head, as if contemplating the words. He studied Carter for a long moment before letting out a small, almost imperceptible chuckle. It was a cold, disbelieving sound. "You think you can defeat me?" the alien commander asked, his voice dripping with contempt. Carter's eyes burned with determination. "We don't need to defeat you. We just need to make you understand that we're not afraid. And that's something you'll never be able to break." The commander's expression shifted for a moment, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. It was a brief, almost imperceptible moment, but Carter caught it. The alien wasn't as confident as he had been moments ago. Something about the humans, their resilience, their courage, was starting to get under his skin. For the first time since landing, the commander seemed uncertain. The force that had been so dominating and cold was now shaken, and Carter could see that he was rattled. The alien commander wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he considered inferior. But this was Earth, and Earth would never kneel. The moment stretched on, the silence louder than any words. The commander took a deep breath, regaining his composure. His eyes narrowed as he prepared for what he knew was coming. This wasn't just a confrontation between soldiers. This was the clash of two civilizations, one that expected domination and the other that would never submit. The next move would decide everything. Would the humans continue to stand their ground, or would they break under the pressure of an unstoppable force? Carter didn't know what would happen next, but he was ready for whatever came. This was a test, and Earth wasn't going to fail. The commander stepped back, raising a hand to his soldiers. The air was thick with anticipation, and Carter could feel the eyes of every cadet on him. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. They were with him, and together, they would show the universe that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The standoff wasn't over, but for the first time since the aliens landed, the power balance was shifting. The humans had made their stand, and they weren't going anywhere. The alien commander, a towering figure in his black, battle-worn armor, stood there, frozen in thought. His soldiers, usually eager to strike at any perceived threat, were just as still, watching with cautious eyes. The hum of the advanced alien technology surrounding them seemed louder now, almost mocking the silence between them. Carter's heart raced, but his expression remained calm, betraying no fear. His stance was firm, his body poised for anything. He knew this was the pivotal moment, the point where humanity would either stand tall or collapse under the weight of the unknown. The commander seemed to be assessing the humans in front of him, a small wrinkle forming on his brow as he took another step closer. This was no ordinary group of soldiers. There was something about their resilience, their calm under pressure that made him pause. The tension in the air was palpable. The cadets behind Carter shifted slightly, but none of them dared to break the silence. This wasn't just about strength. It wasn't about the superior technology or advanced weaponry the aliens possessed. It was about something more, something primal. The alien commander's gaze locked onto Carter. "You're brave," he said, his voice low, yet carrying a strange sense of admiration. "But bravery will not save you." Carter didn't flinch. He knew better than to react impulsively. The alien's words were designed to provoke, to make him doubt. But Carter's confidence was unshaken. "We don't need saving," Carter replied with quiet resolve. "We'll do what it takes to protect Earth." The alien commander's lips curled into something that almost resembled a smirk, but it was a smile without warmth, without humor. His fingers flexed inside his gauntlet, an indication that he was growing impatient. "You still don't understand," the commander continued. "This is not just about your world. You are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The galaxy is vast, and you humans are but a speck in it." Carter's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. The alien's arrogance, his belief that Earth was nothing more than an insignificant point in the galaxy, was something he couldn't let slide. "I don't need to understand your galaxy. All I need to understand is that you're standing on our land. And that's something you'll regret," Carter said, his voice unwavering. For a moment, the commander seemed to ponder these words, as if they didn't fit within the parameters of the cold, calculated decisions he was used to making. He had come to Earth with the intent to assert dominance, to crush whatever insignificant resistance this planet might offer. But now, facing these humans, his certainty faltered. Behind the commander, his soldiers exchanged glances. They had seen him in countless battles, never once backing down, never once doubting. But now, they could sense it too. Something was wrong. The situation had taken a turn. The commander took another step back, glancing at his soldiers. He hadn't anticipated this. He hadn't expected these humans to stand their ground with such conviction. They were just supposed to fall into line, to bow before the might of his fleet. That was the order of the universe. But Carter and his cadets weren't following the script. "Perhaps you're right," the commander said, his voice now colder than before, as if he were masking his uncertainty. "Perhaps you humans do have something unexpected, but it won't be enough." There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a brief hesitation, before he turned and motioned to his officers. "Prepare for the next phase," he said, his words now final, authoritative. Carter's instincts flared. The tension had reached its peak, and he knew that the situation was about to escalate. "Get ready," Carter ordered quietly, his voice steady. The cadets readied themselves without a word, each one moving with practiced efficiency. Their training had prepared them for moments like this. But even so, the air around them felt charged with the weight of what was coming next. The alien commander gave one last look toward the group of humans before turning to leave. "This is not over," he said over his shoulder, his voice cold and filled with menace. "You'll soon learn just how weak you really are." With that, he and his officers turned, their armored boots making a soft but ominous sound as they walked away, heading back toward the ship that had brought them to Earth. The cadets remained silent for a long moment after the commander left. The sense of danger still hung in the air, thick and unrelenting. Carter exhaled slowly, his eyes scanning the horizon. "This isn't over," he muttered. "But we'll be ready. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready." And deep down, he knew that this encounter, this first meeting with the alien commander, was only the beginning. The battle for Earth had just begun, and it was going to take everything they had to survive. The alien commander and his officers retreated toward their ship, their towering figures cutting through the air like shadows in the dimming light. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the stillness of the training yard, and Carter stood motionless, watching their every move. Despite the commander's cold words and chilling dismissal, something had shifted in the air. He could feel it. The alien force had underestimated humanity. They hadn't expected humans to stand their ground. And as Carter stood there, staring after the retreating figures, he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a routine mission for the invaders. Something had broken within their commander's confidence. For the first time, they were unsure. "Carter." A voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Jessica Hayden, one of his most trusted officers, stepped forward, her face a mask of determination. "Are we just going to stand here?" Carter turned to her, his eyes narrowing, as he quickly assessed the situation. They had to move fast. The commander had issued his orders for the next phase, which could only mean one thing: the invasion was coming. The retreat wasn't a retreat at all. It was a temporary regrouping, a break before the true battle began. "We need to move, Lieutenant," Carter replied, his voice steady but urgent. "Get the cadets in position. They're going to come for us, and when they do, we'll be ready." Jessica nodded sharply and began barking orders to the rest of the cadets. In moments, the once calm training field transformed into a scene of controlled chaos, with soldiers moving quickly to their designated positions. The young cadets had trained for moments like this, but the reality of war had never been so close, so tangible. Carter could see the uncertainty in their eyes, but he knew that there was no time for fear. They had been prepared for this moment. A few minutes later, Carter and Jessica stood atop a small platform overlooking the training yard, their eyes scanning the horizon. Carter could feel the weight of the situation pressing in on him. The aliens weren't just here to conquer, they were here to crush any sense of resistance. But they hadn't counted on humanity's resilience, its refusal to be intimidated. And they certainly hadn't counted on the humans' ability to fight back in ways the invaders couldn't predict. "I think they'll regroup, Carter," Jessica said, her voice low but filled with certainty. "They'll come back stronger." Carter nodded, his eyes still locked on the retreating alien fleet. The ships hovered like dark, silent monsters in the sky, their sleek forms standing in stark contrast to the bright blue of Earth's sky. "They'll be back," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. "But we'll be ready for them." As if on cue, the ground beneath them rumbled, a low tremor that signaled the arrival of something much bigger than just the handful of alien invaders they had encountered. The sky, which had been clear moments ago, was now filled with dark shapes, alien ships descending upon the Earth in mass numbers. The invasion was no longer a distant threat. It was here. Carter's heart raced, but his face remained calm, betraying nothing. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of his command, but it wasn't fear that gripped him. It was the knowledge that humanity had a chance. The aliens had made one critical mistake by underestimating the human will to survive. "Stay sharp," Carter ordered, turning to the cadets who were now fully armed and ready. "No matter what happens next, we fight. We hold our ground. This is our planet, and we will protect it." He paused for a moment, looking at the young faces in front of him. "We are humanity's last line of defense." The cadets nodded, their eyes now focused and filled with determination. This wasn't a drill. This was real. And the first test of their strength would soon arrive. As the first of the alien ships descended closer, the massive metallic ships blocking the sun, Carter felt the weight of the moment settle in. The battle for Earth had begun, and there would be no turning back. "Get ready, everyone," he said softly, though his voice carried. "This is what we've been trained for." The alien ships were now overhead, their massive forms casting shadows across the Earth's surface. The unmistakable sound of heavy weapons charging echoed from the ships, and Carter's body tensed in anticipation. And then, without warning, the first blast of energy tore through the air, slamming into the ground not far from their position. The battle had begun. Carter didn't hesitate. He grabbed his weapon and signaled for the cadets to move. The chaos of the moment didn't faze him. It only hardened his resolve. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their right to exist. The alien forces were formidable, but they had made one mistake. They had awakened a force that no one in the galaxy had ever truly understood: humanity's unyielding will to survive. And it was this will, this unrelenting drive to fight against the odds, that would prove to be the most powerful weapon of all. The ground trembled beneath Carter's boots as the cadets scrambled into their positions. The alien ships loomed above them like dark giants, their engines humming ominously. The silence before the storm was deafening, and Carter could feel the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. He had seen combat before, but this felt different. The fate of Earth now rested on the shoulders of these young cadets and on his own resolve. "Focus, everyone," Carter shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. "Hold your positions. Do not let fear control you. You've trained for this." The cadets, young and wide-eyed, but now hardened by the reality of war, nodded in unison. They knew this was no longer just a simulation. The enemy was real, and they had already taken the first step toward humanity's extinction. But they were not going down without a fight. Carter turned to Jessica, his most trusted lieutenant. She was scanning the skies, her eyes darting back and forth as she analyzed the movements of the alien ships. He knew she was ready, just like the others. But he also knew that the first contact between humanity and the alien forces would set the tone for the battle to come. "I've got movement," Jessica said, pointing toward the lead alien ship. A sudden burst of energy shot from the ship, a bright blue beam that streaked toward the Earth's surface. It hit with the force of a small explosion, sending a shockwave that knocked several cadets off their feet. "Get down," Carter barked, diving behind a concrete barricade for cover. The sound of blaster fire filled the air as the cadets scrambled to return fire. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Alien forces began deploying from the ships, landing on the Earth's surface with an almost mechanical precision. Their suits were sleek and dark, their weapons more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. But the humans weren't intimidated. They fought back with everything they had, using their environment and ingenuity to their advantage. "We can't hold them off forever," Jessica shouted over the noise of the battle. "We need backup." "We'll hold them as long as we can," Carter said, his voice steady but strained. The aliens had underestimated humanity's will to survive, but they hadn't yet fully understood the resolve that came with defending your home. The cadets fought with everything they had, launching attacks with precision, despite the fear that gripped their hearts. Their training kicked in, and they moved as one unit, relying on each other, covering each other's backs. The alien invaders might have had the superior firepower, but the humans had something far more dangerous: unity and desperation. Suddenly, An explosion rocked the battlefield. A massive alien warship descended from the sky, its engines glowing bright orange. The blast sent another shockwave through the Earth's surface, throwing Carter off balance. He scrambled to regain his footing, eyes scanning the chaos for his cadets. He needed to make sure they were still in fighting form. Through the smoke and dust, he saw Jessica, crouched behind a destroyed vehicle, firing back at the aliens. Her eyes locked with his, and he gave a sharp nod. They needed a new strategy. The aliens had just brought in their reinforcements, and it was clear they weren't going to back down. Carter's heart raced. They had to take this fight to them, or Earth would be lost. "I'm going to make a run for the southern barricade," Carter yelled to Jessica. "Cover me." Without waiting for a response, he sprinted toward the makeshift barricade, using the terrain for cover. The alien forces were advancing, their soldiers moving in sync with each other, their weapons firing in deadly precision. But Carter's team had something they hadn't anticipated: the element of surprise. Carter dove behind the southern barricade, his hands gripping his weapon tightly. The sound of alien weapons was deafening, but he didn't flinch. He had seen worse. The alien forces weren't expecting a human counterattack. The humans were resourceful, and they could turn anything into a weapon if it meant protecting their home. Carter knew that Earth was about to show the invaders just how wrong they were to think humans were weak. He raised his weapon and fired, targeting the nearest alien soldier. The blast hit its mark, and the alien crumpled to the ground. A few more shots followed, but the soldiers around Carter remained composed, firing at the enemy with precision. "Push forward," Carter commanded, as he signaled his cadets to move. They surged forward, using the barricade as their new stronghold. With each step, they pushed the alien invaders back, their morale rising with every alien soldier they took down. But then came the response. A massive blast erupted from one of the lead warships, and the shockwave sent humans flying backward. The battle was far from over. They had taken a step forward, but now the aliens were sending everything they had. Through the chaos, Carter's mind raced. He knew that humanity's survival depended on one thing: they couldn't let the aliens think they could win. They had to show them the human spirit, the spirit that refused to back down, no matter the odds. As the battle raged on, Carter caught sight of the alien commander in the distance, watching from a high vantage point. The fear in the commander's eyes was unmistakable. He wasn't just watching the battlefield. He was watching humanity fight back with everything they had. And Carter knew, in that moment, that the aliens had made a grave mistake. The battle raged on, and the skies above the Earth darkened with smoke and fire. The once pristine landscape was now scared by explosions and the wreckage of war. The alien forces had launched wave after wave of attacks, and yet humanity's spirit had not faltered. The cadets, young and inexperienced though they were, fought like seasoned warriors, driven by the knowledge that their homes, their families, and their very way of life were at stake. Carter had barely had a moment to catch his breath. His uniform was torn, covered in grime, and his hands shook with exhaustion, but he refused to let it show. There was no time for weakness. The cadets were still following his lead, and he couldn't afford to let them down. Not now. "Keep moving. Hold them back," Carter shouted as he fired his blaster toward an advancing line of alien soldiers. The alien forces were relentless, but they seemed to be underestimating the ferocity with which humanity fought. They thought Earth was defenseless, that the humans were too small and too weak to stand against their superior technology. But they had no idea just how wrong they were. Beside him, Jessica fired in tandem, the roar of her weapon deafening in the chaos. Her face was streaked with dirt, but her eyes were clear, her focus unshakable. "Carter, we need to take out that lead warship," Jessica called out, pointing toward a massive ship hovering above the battlefield. It was unleashing a barrage of firepower, devastating everything in its path. "We'll need a plan," Carter replied, scanning the wreckage around them. The cadets had made a temporary defensive perimeter, but they wouldn't be able to hold it forever. The aliens had learned how to adapt, and it was clear that they had brought reinforcements. It was only a matter of time before their numbers overwhelmed the humans. "Do you have one?" Jessica asked. Carter hesitated for a split second, a plan beginning to form in his mind. It was risky, perhaps too risky, but it was the only chance they had. "We're going to have to get up there," Carter said, nodding toward the sky. The alien warship wasn't just bombing the surface. It was positioned in a way that gave it the advantage. To take it down, they needed to get close enough to breach its defenses. "Are you crazy?" Jessica asked, her tone both incredulous and worried. "It's practically invulnerable from this position." "I know," Carter said, his voice grim, "but we've got nothing left to lose. The longer we wait, the more ground we lose." Jessica stared at him for a moment, her eyes narrowed. "All right, let's do it." The decision was made. Carter turned to the cadets and barked orders, rallying the young soldiers for the boldest move of their lives. "We're going after that warship. Follow my lead. Keep your heads down and move quickly." With that, Carter led the charge toward a nearby supply depot, where they could repurpose old weaponry and vehicles to create an impromptu assault force. They weren't going to make it easy for the aliens. As the humans sprinted across the war-torn battlefield, the alien soldiers took notice, and a new wave of fire rained down upon them. One by one, the cadets fell behind, but their determination was unwavering. For every shot that hit, there was one that missed. For every soldier who went down, another took their place. Humanity was relentless. The alien soldiers, despite their superior technology and experience, were finding themselves under pressure, a pressure they hadn't anticipated. "I'm not letting them win," Carter muttered under his breath as he reached the supply depot. The alien warship was still above them, its guns firing with impunity. But Carter wasn't focused on it anymore. He was focused on one thing: turning the tide of this battle. The supply depot was a mess of metal and debris, but Carter and the cadets found what they needed: an old anti-aircraft cannon. The cannon wasn't as powerful as the ones the aliens used, but it would do. They made quick work of it, loading it onto a makeshift transport vehicle that they could use to get as close as possible to the warship. "Let's move," Carter commanded. The transport vehicle roared to life, and the cadets climbed aboard, their eyes fixed on the prize above. As they sped toward the warship, the alien forces reacted with renewed aggression. They unleashed a torrent of laser fire and missiles, determined to stop the human assault. But Carter, his jaw set in determination, refused to be deterred. They were close now. So close. The closer they got, the more frantic the alien soldiers became. They could see the humans coming, but they couldn't stop them. The warship loomed above them, a massive, intimidating presence in the sky. And then, just as they were about to reach firing range, the humans hit the button. The cannon fired with a deafening roar, the projectile racing toward the warship. The force of the shot was enough to cause a massive explosion, shaking the battlefield. For a moment, there was silence. And then the warship began to descend, its systems failing, the engine sputtering out. The humans had done it. Against all odds, they had struck the alien warship. It was crippled, but the fight was far from over. "Keep pushing," Carter shouted. "This is our chance." The aliens had underestimated humanity's ingenuity and courage. They had thought they could break them, but they had underestimated the one thing that could never be defeated: human will. And now, they were about to learn just how powerful that will was. The alien warship was falling from the sky, its systems destroyed by the precise shot from humanity's makeshift cannon. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as if the tide of the battle might be turning. But that fleeting moment was all the alien forces needed to realize the gravity of the situation. Their seemingly invincible warship had been crippled by a ragtag group of human cadets, and in the face of such unexpected resistance, their pride and arrogance began to crumble. Carter and his team didn't have time to savor their victory. The alien forces, now enraged and desperate, were closing in on their position with renewed fury. The humans had only one choice: fight with everything they had, or face extinction. The cadets, though still inexperienced, had proven themselves time and time again in the heat of battle. Now, they were about to face the ultimate test, the final stand that would determine the fate of Earth. "Stay focused," Carter shouted, rallying his team. His voice was steady, but his mind raced. They had taken down the flagship, but the alien fleet was vast. There were still dozens of ships, each more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. "Carter," Jessica said, her voice low but urgent, "the aliens are retreating, but they're not leaving. They're regrouping." Carter's heart sank. "They're preparing for a final strike. We need to stop them, now." Jessica nodded grimly. "What's the plan?" Carter looked around at the remaining cadets. They were battered, tired, and their numbers were few. But there was a fire in their eyes, an unspoken determination to protect their planet. Carter knew that there was only one way to end this. "We need to take out their command center. If we hit them hard enough, it'll break their morale. If we can take out the heart of their fleet, they won't be able to coordinate their attacks." The cadets exchanged uncertain glances. It was a dangerous plan, but it was their best shot. There was no time for hesitation. Earth's survival depended on their willingness to fight, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "Let's do it," Jessica said, her voice steady. Carter didn't waste any time. He led the team through the remnants of the battlefield, their path now lit only by the glow of the alien ships above them. The once bustling military academy was now little more than a crater, but within the destruction, they had found their answer. They could still win this. They reached a nearby communications tower, a crucial relay point for the alien fleet. If they could infiltrate it and send a fake transmission to the enemy fleet, they could cause chaos within the alien ranks. The cadets moved silently, using the wreckage as cover. Carter's breath was shallow, his senses heightened, every nerve on edge. He knew that one wrong move could mean the end. As they neared the tower, the sound of alien footsteps echoed through the ruins. A patrol of soldiers, unaware of the humans' presence, passed by just a few meters away. Carter held his breath, signaling for his team to remain still. His heart was pounding, but he knew they couldn't afford to be discovered. The patrol moved on, and Carter exhaled sharply. "That was too close," he whispered. But there was no time to dwell on it. They had to keep moving. With quick, precise movements, Carter and the cadets made their way to the base of the communications tower. Jessica set the charge to disable the security systems, while Carter and the others prepared for the next phase of the plan. "It's now or never," Carter said, his voice steady. The charge went off with a loud crack, and the tower's security systems shut down. They were in. They quickly entered the control room, where alien technology blinked and hummed in the dim light. Carter's fingers flew over the alien console, trying to decipher their technology as the rest of the team stood guard. "Carter, you've got to hurry," Jessica urged. "The aliens are regrouping. They won't be distracted for long." The pressure was mounting, but Carter kept his focus. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he managed to access the fleet's central communication network. His fingers hovered over the keys, and with a deep breath, he initiated the fake transmission. The message would make it seem as though the human fleet had launched a counterattack from an unexpected location, pulling some of the alien ships away from their primary assault. The transmission went live. Within moments, the aliens began to react. Carter watched as several ships on the battlefield turned, shifting their focus away from Earth's defenses. It was working. The fake transmission had thrown them off balance. "Nice work, Carter," Jessica said, her voice filled with relief. But there was no time to celebrate. The remaining alien forces quickly realized they had been tricked, and their retaliation was swift. Within seconds, they began to focus all their remaining firepower on the human position. "We need to get out of here," Carter shouted. "Now." The cadets quickly ran for cover, dodging laser fire and falling debris. The aliens were coming in hot, determined to end the human resistance once and for all. Carter's mind raced as he assessed their options. There was only one escape route left: a small tunnel beneath the academy that led to a hidden command center deep underground. "Move!" Carter yelled, leading the way as the cadets sprinted toward the tunnel. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the sound of alien weaponry filled the air. But they kept running, determination fueling every step. They reached the tunnel entrance, but as they neared it, an explosion rocked the ground, sending them flying. Carter hit the dirt hard, his vision blurring. He struggled to his feet, his body aching, but he knew they couldn't stop now. "Jessica," Carter called, but there was no answer. His heart sank. He had lost sight of his team in the chaos. The tunnel was close, so close. With every ounce of strength left in him, Carter pushed forward, hoping his team had made it inside. Finally, he reached the tunnel entrance. He dove into the darkness, barely escaping the alien onslaught that followed. As the last of the cadets made it into the tunnel, Carter collapsed to the ground, breathless but alive. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, they had a real chance to win.